This talk will focus on memes and their dissemination within artistic practices. Cem is a meme maker and aficionado of different typologies within that and the art world. I don't know if, how many of you are familiar with his practice. My name is Dorian Batycka. I'm a journalist with ArtNet News. And I think it's interesting to start with perhaps a simple question to Cem. Why make memes and why make memes about the art world?
I think I don't want to disturb the illusion around the account, but it actually kind of happened by, like, not accident, but kind of unintentionally. That now I look back, I just realized it coincided with me, like, graduating from, like, my master's and my struggle to find a job in the art world, and kind of like I used memes as an outlet for this, but it kind of turned into a practice, and especially with the pandemic, it grew bigger. I think that had the biggest impact.
Can you talk a little bit about your background? I mean, you've worked in Documenta, at the ICA in Berlin. You have a lot of exhibitions coming up. Can you talk a little bit about what you've got going on now with Louisiana and Denmark, and sort of what you're doing with posters, and how you're sort of integrating memes into, let's say, the institutions of the art world?
Yeah, I mean, it happened all step by step. Like, the first one was this show in Berlin, where we built a meme in a physical space, as like with outdoor monitors, the party that we talked about earlier. And then after that led to the show at the Barbican, where I placed meme texts in information screens around the building. And then in Documenta, I worked I was a harvester, which means like doing artistic recordings of meetings because the process is so long and the exhibition is only not a showcase, but it's a part of the process of the just people working together. So the recordings of it is very important. So I was harvesting that, and I also worked as a cultural assistant.
So you use this term harvester, which I find really interesting. When it comes to developing satire, and developing satire specifically about the art world, what drew you to that?
I did my master's in anthropology. I think that has the biggest impact of, like, just looking at this from like a more outsider point of view, or more from like a they call it like participatory observation. I think that informed my work a lot. And beyond that, it's just, I think that applies to a lot of different practices in like art making or humor too, that you definitely feed from like social situations, encounters, or in the case of memes, it could also be that you like see a meme and make a different version of that. And it's more about like a continuous participation in this, like both online and also in real life situations that I also like, not in a creepy way, but sometimes I take notes in the conversation I have with artists, curator friends, or like people in the art world, and then if I use any of this, I do it with permission, but even just daily conversations inform all of this.
Yeah, and we spoke a bit earlier about this kind of tension between, let's say, the institutional art world, museums, biennials, nonprofit spaces, and sort of the for-profit art world, art fairs, galleries. How do you look at these sort of different aspects of the art world when making your memes? Do you sort of say, okay, I want to like look at this specific moment or this specific viral situation? How does it sort of happen for you when you think and then produce and then work, all of these?
You mean when I'm like covering something in a meme, or when I'm doing like a physical project?
Both, in a way. Do you think about the context that you're working, and does that kind of then inform the meme, or do you just sort of make memes all day?
I think there are like a few different strands or like strategies you could have. One is, as I just said, like looking at an existing meme and making, like, improvising on it. Or it could be that I follow art news a lot. So it could be that I read something and I'm just like, yeah, I should definitely make something about this. And I take a note. I have like a checklist of things that I want to talk about. And then I look at meme templates and try to combine them. It's kind of like fishing.
And you know, even in Uvnt, we saw one of my favorite paintings actually was right at the front on the opening day, and it was that Feels guy who you know, some meme character, sort of type format, and it was the guy pushing up the boulder like Sisyphus, you know, and then the boulder falls back down, the boulder falls back down. What is it about these types, say the doomer, that, you know, particularly attracts you?
I think, like, as you said, like, these are, I think they have deep roots in, like, I don't know, philosophy or like visual culture, and these are like the current iterations of these figures. I think in a way, if like you could have done similar work or like work with a similar meaning in past times, but using different images or like sets of images. So I think they're just the new sets of images that we can use to make the same kind of criticism.
But interesting, you mentioned philosophy, because I've always seen the character of the doomer as a very like Nietzschean complex, in the sense that the character of the doomer within the cultural, say, like epoch of memes is someone who is like struggling to come to terms with the existence of their life. You know, it's a very existential sort of figure. Do you identify as the doomer, or?
I definitely did, especially during the pandemic. I think that's the so as many other people, or like maybe everyone.
So you're doomer. You're not zoomer?
No, I think I passed that.
Are you boomer?
No, not yet. But I think someone called, like in a discussion actually a couple of weeks ago in a panel, someone called my memes millennial.
Millennial.
So I think I'm turning into a boomer.
You're turning.
Slowly.
You go from millennial to boomer.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you on TikTok?
No, but I think that's gonna have to be the next step. It's.
Should galleries be on TikTok?
No.
No. Should collectors be on TikTok?
I don't know if they even post anything on Instagram. Or
Yo, should fair directors be on TikTok? Sergio, are you on TikTok? Where's Sergio? Is he on TikTok? Okay.
No, I think I have a very strong theory about this. Like, I think from Facebook to Instagram, that was this very swift move. And I think that only happened because Instagram was already ready to host those people and Facebook was dying. And now we're, I think, at the stage that Instagram is dying, but TikTok isn't open enough to host all of those people. Like, I think, because if you think about Instagram also, that there was a period that you could only, or at least socially, you could only post your own photographs with a filter on it, and anything else would be such a taboo and it would be unthinkable. But I think as any platform grows and tries to reach to a bigger audience, they kind of generalize themselves and like try to open up that content spectrum. And that hasn't happened on TikTok yet. I think it's still very specific what you're expected to produce, at least on social terms. And I think only then it makes sense for art institutions or collectors, or including me also, to be on it, that you could actually reach to that audience, because it's still very, very niche.
Your Instagram now has a link to a fundraiser for victims of the earthquake in Turkey. Can you explain a little bit about why you decided to do that?
Sure. It's like it was quite difficult to like follow the news, and also being like familiar with the context of where that happened, and I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't covered so much in the, like European news or like Western culture so much. So I just really tried to push to kind of get that recognized more. But it's also difficult also because it's like understandably a very different context. So in that way, I don't know what could be expected from art institutions in that way either.
I want to ask you about memes in cultures that maybe don't have the same laws around speech and freedom of speech, as you know, you have here in Europe. When it comes to like the role of humor and satire in countries that may not have the same laws around free speech, how do you feel that memes play into this, let's say, geopolitical dynamic?
They're, I think, very strong. The other discussion about that is about like, this is always taught in like an English-speaking context, that for instance, memes are always seen as right-wing, or like it looks like right-wingers use it more strongly. But actually, if you look at non-English-speaking meme cultures, left-wing or more protest memes are also very strong. And I think in that way, they play a really big role. And there is always, this really depends on the country, but you also, I think in the European context, within the understanding of freedom of speech, you kind of expect to criticize something by naming it directly. And this is something you cannot do in maybe some other contexts, but there are definitely ways around it. And I think memes definitely play a role in that. Like you don't have to mention the names of politicians to be able to criticize them or like gather people around problems and kind of do online.
Is it ever too soon to meme something? Is it ever like too soon? Like, you know, I'm always reminded of certain situations where I see a meme of something and people are like, too soon. Like, just the tragedy is too fresh. I mean, and then touching on also, I guess this is touching on the political issue around memes, is you have certain figures like Pepe who are associated with the alt-right, however, whose founder and whose original sort of depictor says that it shouldn't be, but you know, where do you kind of draw the line around these issues?
I actually did a meme about Queen Elizabeth the day that she died, and people were very upset about that one. But I think like that was kind of a statement I wanted to make about her role in like so much inhumane stuff that has happened and like what she represents. And I think there's definitely a line that I think where it is too soon, but it definitely, like, that's very subjective, and also depends on even, I don't know how big the account is. Like, I feel like there could be some memes I could make when the account was much smaller, much early on, to kind of catch there is like a curve of a meme that you have to, do you want to be like an early investor and kind of be proud when it goes mainstream? Or the problem I'm having right now is that like if you do something so niche, then because the account is reaching so many people or like such a wide spectrum that most people don't get it, and they have to look back at it in like 2-3 days to understand it. So I have to kind of maybe sit on it for like a couple days and then post it so that it will like reach more people, and then you kind of join, like enter that graph at a different point. So
apparently Generation Z, their number one, the job that they all want is to be an influencer or to be a YouTuber or a memer. How do you make money?
Definitely not by giving talks, but it's like I do exhibitions now, or like I do some social media consultancy and other things, and it's.
So how do people get in touch with you? On your Instagram, or they do consultancy?
Or just like meeting in person. And I try to do it as much as an artist and not do sponsored posts, not to like things.
You have integrity.
I try to.
Okay, you're not going to start shilling a VPN or a crypto.
No.
On your Instagram? Okay. What about all that Bitcoin I invested with you last week? You DM'd me. That was a scam?
Not here.
Oh my God. Don't ever invest in Bitcoin, anybody. Well, does the audience have any questions? I think we covered a lot, but I suppose, like, you know, it's to just wrap everything up. I think it's really interesting what you're doing in bringing memes into the gallery system and into the museum world and into the nonprofit space, and I think just keep it up, keep up the good work, and. Yeah, if you want to maybe speak about what you have coming up. I mean, you're doing the posters now with Louisiana, an institution in Denmark. You have a few shows coming up at Berlinisch Gallery in Kreuzberg in Berlin. So,
I mean, also to answer your question about how to make money, like I try to do everything like a more artistic context, and just because for me, like, I don't want to, if someone reaches out to me and say that, hey, would you do a sponsored report about this specific thing? I don't want to do that, but it could be that in an art context, like I do a residency somewhere, and that will, as I said, like I naturally just continue making memes about what I experience, so like it will lead to memes anyway. So in that way, I see that as a byproduct of.
What's your most liked meme so far? What's your most popular one?
I think the one about like to this like Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate
Titanic?
Winslet. Yeah, not that one, but the one where it says.
Were you staring at the screen?
Huh?
Were you pointing at the screen?
No, the one that says DiCaprio says I'm an alcoholic, and the other one says.
They're swinging.
They're swinging, and then they say let's open a gallery.
Yeah. Oh, that's your most liked meme?
I think so.
What do you think that says philosophically about the art world?
I think it's I think the biggest irony in that is like it's actually really kind of rude to say like make a meme that like what it suggests is actually kind of rude, but also it kind of taps into this weird stereotype in the art world about what it means to run a gallery, or like the reality of working in the art market is very tough for everyone, and I think in that way it's kind of this weird open secret / like hard truth kind of a thing that kind of when it's in the context of a meme it kind of is acceptable. So I find it quite.
What's the weirdest DM you've ever gotten?
Probably people trying to buy the account.
Oh yeah? How
like
much?
it happened like a couple. They didn't offer money even, but it was just like.
Okay, let's get a hat. Let's start passing around. You're good for 50. I see those frames. Those are expensive. Serge, he's good for 10,000. Is that enough?
Sure.
Are there any venture capitalists here who we can get to buy his handle before he leaves the stage?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what will happen to it long term. Like.
So it's not for sale?
No, I mean, it's like.
100,000. You would take 100.
Let's talk about this afterwards.
Oh my God. Art and capital. Wow, that's a very uneasy entanglement. But we're at an art fair, so let's talk money.
But
I'm kidding. Does the audience have any questions? I mean, is this an hour or how long has it been? I've lost track on time. Oh. All right, I'm taking a nap. No. Well, like, I mean, okay, what else can we talk about? Like, what do you want to talk about?
well, then, like, what do you think, like, memes could do, like, in the art world? Like, you're also like a journalist, so I think in that context, what?
I quit art, though. I quit art to go to crypto. So the memes are better, I will say, in crypto, and the scams are more prolific.
More.
So I work as a journalist, so I don't like actually invest in crypto. But as a journalist, it's much more interesting to look at crypto because like you have like Sam Bankman-Fried, you have like the whole world like being upended. Like it's very, I mean, what I love about art is that you had that petri dish of these characters. You know, you had like Anna Delvey, you had. And there's many other Anna Delveys. When I say Anna Delvey was just the one who got busted. There's probably 12 Anna Delveys in this room, one of them being me. So like, it's just, that's always what attracted me to art was these kind of memes, these characters. Anna Delvey is a meme, right? Like, she's just become a meme. So that's where I'm coming from. And then why I quit art, well, I mean, I came out of retirement for this, basically. Only for you will I come out of retirement. From now on, I'm never doing another art fair again. Actually, Ibiza, Cannes. We'll do Cannes, Ibiza. We'll do part 2 of this talking Cannes, Ibiza. Can we do the other 30 minutes then, actually? I'm kidding. That was a bad joke. But also, Cannes, Ibiza is a very good fair for collectors and galleries here. Shoutouts to Ken, I went. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand about that. His memes are great and they're very stimulating.
But do you think there could be like anything that memes could have done but couldn't achieve, or still has the potential to?
No, because they're always evolving. They're like a viral disease, right? They're like an STD, man. Memes are like STDs. that's why I love them. But, you know, I mean, it's kind of sick, you know, memes can be very sick and dark. You know, I don't know if you peruse 4chan. I peruse these places, you know, like, I consider myself a bit of a, not a meme scholar, but at least a meme archaeologist, where I really, I really look at them and I study them and I look at their different subgenres, you know, and then that's why I really love your work, because you know all the little, you know, the little types and the little. We were talking also in the cab earlier, how great it would be to start to release a pack, like a starter pack, where you could just sell it for $10, and you have the, you know, the doomer and the different types, and then you could just sell it as a meme starter pack for $10 on. So yeah, I mean, I think always there's interesting things to look at. I mean, and I think when it comes to all of these issues, like, yeah, it's good to figure out ways where you can make a career around them, and I think the way that you're doing it with art is really good. I've just chosen to do it with journalism because, you know, art, it's so hard to get paid from it. Even when I was doing Hyperallergic, it was like I was doing so much for them, and it was like I was focusing more so on political art, and that was very hard. When I started focusing more on like art market, that's when I saw a way big uptake in my own career as a journalist, because I think I started focusing more on art market, and then that really helped. But it's really difficult when you're doing political work, right? When you're doing political memes or you're doing political journalism, it's very difficult to find support for that kind of stuff. So I think if you can find support from the gallery world, that's amazing, right? Or the, you know, Documenta world, or the, because talk a little bit about Documenta, because, you know, you were there for so long, and you were on a stipend, you know, you got X amount per month, you were in the office. What was that like?
It was, yeah, in a way, it really went hand in hand, like being a harvester and like making memes about the whole process of how the exhibition is coming together, and also working as a curatorial assistant was very informative also. I think in a way, the recognition of that kind of institutions, even though I actually had a very sort of like difficult time at some points, it was very...
what was the day-to-day like? You went into the office, which was where?
Just at the center, like next to the Feliciano, like Rural House.
Okay.
It's like one stop on the train.
You go into the office, who's there?
It's like all the curatorial assistants, production team, artistic directors.
So people come in and go, and curators, artists.
Yeah, like especially from like March and April, there was always like an influx. And I mean, there were like more than 2,000 artists in the exhibition, so there were like hundreds of people coming and going. And
so you would go to a computer, you would sit at a computer, or?
Yeah. I mean, there are just like lots of meetings, and my role was also to be the curatorial assistant for the harvesting project as a whole, working with also like other harvesters, and it's just a sort of like, also sort of like you work as a librarian, that you kind of index all the harvests, archive them, and we also developed a project with these posters.
Did you ever meme the tearing patty situation?
No.
Why?
Not specifically that. I did make memes about the whole controversy, you could say. Some of them I posted, some of them I haven't, or like I wasn't.
Did you feel the need to self-censor?
A little bit, yeah, because it was a very scary situation, like how the whole country turned against a group of artists, rightfully or wrongfully, like without giving any space to discuss, and also living on Germany on a visa, being like also being financially dependent on that is very, it's not easy.
Did you feel a sense of solidarity, and what was the mood like when that happened?
There are different, like, actually in that way, when people talk about institute, like that's I think the biggest thing I learned from being inside Documenta is that this idea of like institution, like you're inside or outside the institution, is just very inaccurate for any situation. Like no one is, even if you're outside an institution, technically, you always have this potential of being inside it, or like there's always awareness. It's more like a container, but the perimeters of this is actually quite unclear. And even inside it, there are different people who are like much more invested in the protection of the institution. Some others have different goals of like protecting their community or caring more about people than the institution, which I think sounds more fair. But there are also some people who are like extremely invested in just being very protectionist about the institution itself, even though no one is the institution. So in that way, it's a very difficult. And in that way, like what people don't understand about documentaries, I think that there are also like a lot of subcategories of that. Like there is the board of directors, Documenta 15, basically like for same as an art fair, for every edition of Documenta, they appoint a curator or curators, and then the whole team is just built around that. And then you leave the job in September, like after the exhibition closes, everyone just leaves. So it's like you are not actually a part of the institution. You don't have that job full time. You work there for maybe 1 or 2 years. So there are also different, not fractions, but different groups that naturally form within the institution too. That in that way, that's also kind of, I stopped myself from posting some of the memes because they kind of, I think, also complaining about problems, also in the eyes of people like outsiders, kind of give that blame to people that you don't want to be associated with that too, or like it has that potential. So
Would you say it was a learning experience? I mean, ultimately, in that way of like learning, because, you know, there were these people who did great institutional critique throughout art history. Hans Haacke looked into the board of directors of the MoMA when creating some of his installations that really went to the heart of that institutional critique, let's say art historical canon. What did you learn about institutional critique at that point?
sorry?
What did you learn about institutional critique, like after Documenta?
I think it's just the dichotomy in institutional critique is, I think, just inaccurate. This idea of being, maybe as an artist living in the 60s and 70s, yes, you could really be outside the institution and those lines are more clear. But I think today, even if you don't work in an institution, you always have the potential to do that or need that for, I think, rightful reasons. So these lines are very blurry, and I think institutional critique doesn't, at least not anymore, it doesn't represent us. And I just kind of try to look at it more.
Oh, I mean, what about Ahmet Ogut? You know, I think he's a great example of an artist who goes into a situation, thinks about it very deeply, produces work, and if the situation is fucked up, boom, you know, what is institutional critique today? I mean, how do you define it?
I think the missing factor is that it's just positionality. That, like, I think you should also, the argument that I want to make is that I think there is this contradiction or this paradox between, like, we kind of sometimes assume the most vulnerable people in a situation that is most bound to the institution to be the most critical of them. And then when they don't do that, I think that's the most respectable thing to do, to be able to do that in that situation. But it should also not be disappointing if they cannot do that. And I think maybe someone outside the institution is also not the right person to do that because they're not invested so much, but it's somewhere in between. And I don't think institutional critique as a concept on its foundation kind of represents this and doesn't account for this positionality in how this criticism could be circulated or how it could be announced. Because I think there are also situations that where the outside criticism is inaccurate too, that because they just understandably don't have enough information about what actually happened or like what is the real reasons behind something that happened that wasn't right.
I mean, we're in Spain, you know, you have Picasso's Guernica and La Reina Sofia. You have such a great history of Spanish artists specifically who were so important to the political dynamic of Spanish history as observers. Velázquez, you have so many crucial, even to it, you know, like the Goyas, my God, you know, the Black period Goyas are fantastic. You have to go there to the Prado where they have all of them, and he was recording it like a journalist almost. And then going very dark, you know, And I think always, that's always what's really interested me specifically about like Spanish, let's say art history, has been that ability for the artist to document and to work as, you use the word harvester, but like I see it as more of like a trajectory of like history painting, where history painting was meant to be academic. You do a huge canvas, you study for years, and you depict this crucial historical moment, and you got the funding from like the state or like the aristocracy or whoever to make that. Now, as a memer, you don't necessarily have to rely on funding from the aristocracy or the church, but you still play a crucial role in documenting that history and being a documentarian or a harvester. So, who are some of these artists throughout history that inspired you?
I think when it comes to memes, people kind of see them in isolation, that as if this new form never existed before, but I think you can really connect it to a lot of different practices. Like it could be more expected ones like Andre Fraser or like Hans Hake or like more critique figures, or it could be that there are some artists like Philip Gaston or Ed Reinhardt who are known for their paintings or like their fine art, but who were also caricaturists. And I find their work also very inspiring. Or it could also be connected to, what was his name? This collage maker in like during World War II in Germany. I forgot his name. Like he's making collages of like this Hitler collage with like his.
Dada guy?
No, after Dada, but like Dada is also another example of this, definitely, and it goes back to, I don't know. Also, there is this like.
What did you do before making memes?
I studied anthropology and curation.
Curation. No plans to go back to curation?
Not for now. I think curation is, I think it's more rewarding to.
Curation's dead. Curation's dead. Curation is for. No, I think when you work in the art world today, it's interesting to have this. You have different access points, right? You can work as an artist in this way, maybe as a researcher here, maybe doing different things. It's like you have to kind of, I always did that. I always did odd jobs when I was starting out in the art world. I would always do like, this or that, or like help my friends with their projects. Any plans to open your own space or anything like that?
I actually thought about it because like I still live in Kassel and it's quite cheap.
Yeah.
So I thought it could be interesting to do something there, but that's also like a really big commitment. I mean, we did a project together online when we like commissioned these texts.
That was great. I met Darius through that, and Darius and I have become quite close actually since. I met a few really cool people through that. Thank you for that. That was awesome.
I'm actually interested in like doing more like maybe digital projects, which also takes a lot of time. Like even us sitting through all of those applications, we basically like did a project where we commissioned people to write on memes, and we asked for pitches, and then like commissioned I think 3 people to write, and Dorian was on the committee, like selection committee.
Amy was also from Art Newspaper. Mm-hmm. There was the Art Newspaper.
And Hima from Open Space.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of project is definitely exciting, and I see that not as a decision to like become a curator, but sort of like it's an extension of what I do anyway. So I'm definitely.
You should start a hot ticket PR agency. Yeah, freeze PR.
Yeah, maybe if it doesn't work out at some point, I'll just sell the page and.
No, 10,000 per meme. You just charge 10,000 per meme. You don't need to sell the page, and it's just 10,000 per meme. Sara will be the CEO. You're CEO of Freeze PR. And you can be on the board of directors too.
That's where the money is.
What's the time like? How many more minutes?
Sorry, please don't be intimidated by us.
Okay. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, that was very fast, fast-paced.
Thank you, everyone.